Chosen one, this message has found you right on time. Not by accident, not by coincidence. This is divine justice unfolding. You were guided here because the lies spoken against you are being dealt with now, and your spirit needed this confirmation. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when your silence becomes louder than the noise they tried to make about you. You didn't defend yourself, you didn't retaliate, and you didn't run to clear your name. Why? Because deep down, you knew that truth doesn't need to scream, it just needs time. And now that time has come. They lied on your name, they twisted your words, they exaggerated your flaws, they tried to paint you as something you never were, and they did it with confidence, thinking there would be no consequences. But what they didn't realize is this: when you're chosen, you're covered. And when people falsely accuse someone covered by divine protection, karma doesn't knock politely, it kicks the door down. In this video, we're going to break it down into 7 chapters so you can see exactly how this spiritual reversal works and why you should never worry when your name is under attack. Before we dive in, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. This message is for the chosen ones who've been lied on, misunderstood, and betrayed, yet never lost their integrity. You've always known you were different, and now the truth is fighting for you. If this message hits your spirit, drop the number 77 in the comments. It's not just a number, it's a divine confirmation that justice is being served, that your name is being cleared, and karma is at the door of those who tried to destroy you. Only the truly chosen will stay until the end, and those who do will walk away with the strength, validation, and divine clarity they've been waiting for. Each time you return to this message, another layer of truth will be revealed. This isn't just content, it's confirmation. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The attack was never about you. It was about their insecurity. Most of the people who turned on you, gossiped about you, or lied on your name weren't acting out of pain you caused them. They were reacting to the pain they felt within themselves. You didn't break them. You simply reminded them they were already broken. Your light exposed their darkness, and that made them uncomfortable. Your confidence challenged their self-doubt. Your authenticity threatened the mask they had spent years perfecting. And your presence made them feel like they had something to hide. They didn't attack you because you were wrong. They attacked you because you were real. Without even trying, you became a mirror to their insecurity, a living, breathing reflection of everything they buried. You didn't say a word, but your existence told the truth, and that truth hurt them more than any insult ever could. Instead of growing, they chose to project. Instead of healing, they chose to hate. So they lied. They distorted your story. They painted you as the villain because it helped them play the victim. But here's the truth. If you were average, they wouldn't have cared. If you were forgettable, they wouldn't have wasted their breath. The fact that they went out of their way to twist your name proves one thing. You were a threat. Not because you tried to be, but because you couldn't help but shine. They saw your potential before you did. That's what scared them. You were walking into rooms with no agenda and still taking up spiritual space. You were carrying energy that exposed what they tried to hide, and they hated you for it. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you represented everything they pretended to be. This is the reality many chosen ones face. The attacks rarely come from strangers. They often come from those closest to you, family, friends, people who smiled in your face but secretly feared what you would become. They wanted to keep you small so they wouldn't have to face their own smallness. And when you refused to shrink, they tried to sabotage. But what they didn't know is, every lie they told, every whisper behind your back, every attempt to discredit you, it was fuel. It taught you to stand firm. It forced you to find strength in solitude. It pushed you closer to purpose. They meant it for harm, but God used it for growth. Understand this: the attack was never really about you. It was about what you represent. You walk in a truth they can't handle. You carry a light they can't dim. You are proof that greatness doesn't need permission. and that unsettles people who are still waiting for validation. So when they couldn't control you, they tried to control the narrative. Let them talk. Let them twist. Because no lie can bury what God has anointed. You weren't created to be accepted by everyone. You were chosen to disrupt the patterns, to break the cycles, and to remind the world what authenticity looks like. Their insecurity is not your responsibility. Keep shining, keep rising, because no matter what they say, truth doesn't need defending, it just needs time. Chapter 2. They needed to control the narrative before you could speak. People who lie on you early are usually trying to get ahead of the truth. They sense something in you, a quiet authority, a rising presence, a divine calling, and it scares them. They knew that if people really got to know you, if they saw the way your spirit moves, if they heard the way you speak truth without even raising your voice, they'd be exposed. Not because you're trying to tear them down, but because your very existence challenges the lies they built their identity on. So they move first. They launch the smear campaign. They whisper before you even arrive. They start planting seeds of doubt in people's minds, carefully crafting a false version of you. One that's easier to dismiss, to judge, or to ignore. It's not personal, it's strategic. This is how manipulators operate. If they can't destroy the gift, they'll try to destroy your credibility, because they know the weight your voice carries. They know the power your presence brings. And if people were to actually hear your story and see your heart, the spell they've cast over others would break instantly. So they try to preempt the truth with lies. They work overtime to get others to see you through a distorted lens. Why? Because they're not just afraid of your success, they're afraid of your influence. But here's the thing. Lies may travel fast, but truth moves with purpose. Lies may shout loudly in the beginning, but truth echoes through time. You see, God doesn't rush what's eternal. While they're busy sprinting ahead with gossip and falsehoods, God is quietly building your foundation. He's strengthening your voice. He's developing your character so that when you finally speak, it's not noise, it's revelation. You were never meant to prove yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Let them misjudge you. Let them mislabel you. You don't need to fight back. Your fruit will speak for itself. Because when the truth finally steps into the light, it doesn't need an introduction, it just is, and it silences every lie without saying a word. Understand this. Their rush to define you was proof of your anointing. They felt the shift in the spirit before you even knew you were shifting. They saw something you hadn't yet stepped into, so they tried to cut it off before it could bloom. That's not rejection, that's confirmation. The louder the opposition, the greater the calling. Chosen one, you don't need to chase people down to fix what they believe about you. You were never called to be understood. You were called to be authentic. And authenticity always outlasts fabrication. Time is your ally. Character is your covering. God is your defender. So when you feel silenced or misrepresented, don't panic. Prepare. Because your season to speak is coming. And when you do, it won't just be words, it'll be wisdom. It won't just be your story, it'll be a testimony. The ones who tried to speak before you, they'll be forced to watch as the truth they feared becomes the light that leads others out of darkness. And all they'll be able to say is, "We tried to warn you." But deep down they'll know you were never the problem. You were the answer they tried to silence. Let God finish what He started in you, because once He does, no narrative, no matter how loud or long-standing, can stand against your truth. Chapter 3. You were told to stay silent, and that was strategic. There were moments you wanted to clap back, moments your heart raced and your hands shook, itching to defend yourself. You wanted to expose the lies, confront the betrayal, and shout your truth from the rooftops. The injustice burned. The disrespect stung. The silence felt like swallowing fire. But even in that storm of emotion, something in your spirit whispered, "Be still," not because you were weak, not because you were scared, but because God was doing something deeper than your defense could ever reach. While they were busy performing for attention, you were healing in private. While they were painting you as the villain, God was preparing you as the vessel. And while they were rushing ahead trying to control the narrative, you were being divinely positioned for something greater. See, silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's sacred. You weren't being passive. You were being positioned. God knew that if you spoke too soon, you'd be speaking from pain, not power, from emotion, not elevation. He was protecting your voice by holding it until it could carry not just your truth, but His authority. That pause wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You were being refined in the quiet, sharpened in the shadows, strengthened in stillness. There's a kind of power that can only be developed in silence. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself to be respected, the kind that moves without permission, the kind that speaks once and shifts atmospheres. They thought your silence meant defeat. But really, it meant you were listening, not to them, but to God. And while they were loud and messy, you were steady and grounded. You were letting heaven fight what your words couldn't fix. You were letting your wounds become wisdom instead of weapons. And that wisdom is priceless. They expected you to react, to lash out, break down, or stoop to their level. But when you didn't, it confused them. It exposed their need for chaos. Because when you remained calm in the middle of their storm, you prove they never had control in the first place. Don't mistake your restraint for weakness. That silence was your weapon. That stillness was your warfare. And now you're rising. Not because you shouted, but because you trusted. Not because you fought dirty, but because you stayed clean. You stayed focused. You stayed aligned. And now that God is bringing you into the light, your voice carries a different kind of weight. You're no longer just speaking, you're releasing. You're no longer reacting, you're reigning. And every word you speak now is soaked in authority because it was birthed in obedience. You see, real power doesn't need to chase validation. It doesn't argue with lies. It doesn't compete with noise. Real power simply shows up, and everything false in its presence folds. So yes, you were told to stay silent. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it felt unfair. But it was all part of the plan, because God wasn't just preserving your peace. He was protecting your platform. Now when you speak, people will listen. Now when you show up, truth will rise with you. Now when you move, it won't be from a place of proving, it will be from a place of purpose. Chapter 4. Karma doesn't miss, it moves in silence too. You didn't see it at first. In fact, it seemed like they were winning. They lied on your name and got applauded. They manipulated the narrative and gained followers. They threw dirt on your reputation and still got invited to the room. For a while, it looked like evil was triumphing and truth was being buried. But what they didn't realize is that karma doesn't wear a clock. It doesn't rush, but it's never late. It doesn't always strike with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's slow and surgical, dismantling their lives one thread at a time, from the inside out. They thought they got away with it. They laughed behind closed doors. They boasted in group chats. But karma, or divine justice, if you will, was already moving. You started to notice things, not immediately, but subtly. Doors that once opened for them began to close. People who once praised them began to distance themselves. Their name didn't hold the same weight. Their peace disappeared. Their joy felt forced. And deep down, they knew something shifted. Because the universe is balanced. The spirit realm operates on laws you can't out-talk, outrun, or out-manipulate. You can't sow dishonor and reap elevation. You can't tear someone down and expect to keep climbing. What goes around doesn't just come around. It often circles back harder than it was sent. And the best part? You didn't have to lift a finger. You didn't retaliate. You didn't plot revenge. You didn't throw dirt back. You kept your hands clean and your heart pure. You stayed focused. You stayed in alignment. And because you didn't try to play God, God stepped in for you. That's the power of staying in your lane. That's the blessing of not clapping back. Because when you let the divine handle it, the consequences hit different. They hit deeper, not to destroy, but to correct, not to punish, but to teach. Karma doesn't always look like public humiliation. Sometimes it's private unrest, a storm in the soul that no applause can silence. Sometimes it's blessing blockages, opportunities drying up with no explanation. Sometimes it's forced reflection, when everything they built starts crumbling and they're left staring at the pieces, knowing deep down they did it to themselves. And you're rising. Not because you fought dirty, but because you stayed clean. Not because you shouted, but because you healed. Not because you got even, but because you trusted the process. That's what makes your glow-up so undeniable. It's not revenge, it's restoration. It's not pettiness, it's proof. Proof that the universe, the Creator, the Most High, keeps the receipts. So the next time someone lies on your name, tries to assassinate your character, or plays dirty behind the scenes, remember this: you don't have to chase justice. Karma knows the address, and it doesn't knock, it walks right in. Let them reap what they sowed. Let God handle what your hands were never meant to touch. Because when you choose peace, power follows. And when you trust the silence, justice speaks louder than words ever could. Chapter 5. The same people who lied are now watching you rise. They're quiet now, aren't they? The same voices that once screamed your faults have gone silent. The ones who gossiped in corners and whispered in circles suddenly have nothing to say. Why? Because you're rising, and they can't deny it anymore. They said you were lazy, but now you're building, creating, thriving. And not just for show. Your progress is real, rooted in consistency, grounded in purpose. They see you now, focused, disciplined, locked in, and it makes their lies echo with emptiness. They said you were fake, but now your authenticity is inspiring others. You never had to shout who you were. You simply showed up day by day as your true self. And in a world full of masks, that truth hits harder than anything they said behind your back. They said you'd never recover. But now you're not just standing, you're leading. You didn't just bounce back, you evolved. You didn't just survive, you transformed. The pain they thought would break you became the platform you now stand on. And what they thought would bury you ended up planting you. Now you're blooming. The same people who tried to tarnish your name are being forced to witness your elevation. Not because you sought revenge, but because you stayed on your path. You stayed rooted in purpose while they got lost in pettiness. You took the high road when the low road begged for your attention. And now they have no choice but to watch from the sidelines. And here's the part they never expected. You're rising without bitterness. You're glowing without needing their validation. You're successful without compromising your soul. That's what divine justice looks like. It's not always loud. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle, a quiet but undeniable shift in the atmosphere. The ones who cursed you are now clapping awkwardly from afar. The ones who tried to sabotage you are being humbled by your consistency. The ones who told others you'd never make it, now they're being asked about you. Hey, didn't you used to know them? Weren't you close to them back then? And suddenly they have no choice but to speak your name. And this time, with respect. See, when you're chosen, your elevation is not optional. It's inevitable. No lie can hold back what heaven has already approved. No slander can cancel what purpose has activated. No enemy can undo what obedience has built. They thought they could control your outcome. They thought they had the final word, but they forgot. God speaks last. So now they sit in silence, watching, confused, convicted. Not because you fought them, not because you exposed them, but because you outgrew them. And nothing is more threatening to a liar than someone who rises without them. Chosen one, keep walking, keep building, keep shining. Because the stage you're stepping onto, it's not for revenge, it's for purpose. And the light that's on you now, It was never about proving them wrong. It's about fulfilling what was rightfully yours all along. Let them watch. Let them wrestle with the truth. They tried to bury you. You don't need to say a word. Your life speaks volumes now. Chapter 6. Your story is clearing the lies without you saying a word. The best part about walking in alignment is this. Your life becomes the evidence. You don't have to clap back. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to chase people down to prove your worth, because when you're aligned with purpose, with truth, with the divine, your fruit does the talking. Your healing journey, that's evidence. Your peace in the middle of storms, that's evidence. Your growth, your elevation, your glow up. None of it required an announcement, yet it's speaking louder than any rumor ever could. The lies they told were loud, they were dramatic, they were messy. And for a while, it felt like they stuck. People backed away from you. Opportunities got quiet. You questioned your own light, wondering if the truth would ever rise again. But truth doesn't need to compete with lies. It just needs time. Because truth isn't a trend. It's a foundation. And foundations don't shake when the wind blows. You kept walking. You kept sowing in silence. You kept growing while no one clapped. And now the harvest is undeniable. The very people who believed the worst about you, who nodded silently while others dragged your name, are starting to wonder. They're seeing your consistency, your peace, your success, and something's not adding up. How could someone they called fake carry that kind of grace? How could someone they said was unstable walk with so much clarity? How could someone they painted as a problem become such a force for good? Because your story is clearing the lies, without you saying a word. You became the living contradiction to every false narrative. You became the proof that character outlasts gossip, that integrity outlives slander, that what's real doesn't have to explain itself, it simply endures. And here's the deeper truth. God knew this would happen. That's why he told you to be still. That's why he let you walk through seasons where it felt like you were invisible, misunderstood, even abandoned. Because he was building a witness bureau in your life, not for their approval, but for his glory. You're not just vindicated, you're elevated. And not because you argued your way back into people's good graces, but because you let your journey speak. You let your obedience, your self-work, your spiritual maturity become the loudest rebuttal to every accusation. So let them watch. Let them wrestle with the fact that you didn't fold, that you didn't shrink, that you didn't disappear. You just let your life do the talking. Because when you're chosen, even your silence is prophetic. Even your scars tell a story. And even your quiet victories shake the very lies that tried to define you. Your story is being read now, not the one they told, but the one God wrote. And the people who once questioned you, they're being confronted with the truth that never needed a spotlight. It just needed to be lived. So keep going, keep rising, keep showing up with grace, because the truth will always outlive the lie. And chosen one, you are the proof. Chapter 7. Forgive, but don't forget. Your peace is the final clap back. Now that karma has done its work and truth has risen like the sun after a long stormy night, you might feel that temptation rise, that small voice in your head whispering, "Go ahead, say it. I told you so." But don't, because that's not your lane anymore. You've graduated from needing validation. You've outgrown the urge to be petty. And besides, your peace is louder than any clapback ever could be. Let your joy be your statement. Let your calm confuse the ones who tried to destroy your name. Let your elevation preach the sermon that words could never fully capture. Forgive them, not because they deserve your grace, but because you deserve your freedom. Forgiveness doesn't mean you excuse what they did. It doesn't mean you minimize the pain. It simply means you've chosen to stop carrying what they left on your doorstep. You've decided to cut the cord. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it no longer controls you. But also, don't forget, not out of bitterness, not because you want to hold a grudge, but out of wisdom. Some people showed you exactly who they are when they thought you were too broken to bounce back. They revealed the truth of their heart when they chose betrayal over loyalty. They exposed their character when they used your vulnerability as a weapon. Believe them. Believe the patterns. Believe the silence. Believe the shift in energy when your name came up, and then move accordingly. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to wish them harm. But you do have the right to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Your rise was never about revenge. It was never about proving a point or making them eat their words. Your rise was about redemption. It was about showing what God can do with a life that refuses to give up. It was about rising from the ashes with grace instead of grudges, about becoming the version of you that those lies could never touch. You were never meant to stay buried. They thought they were covering you up, but God was actually covering you for growth. You weren't buried, you were planted. And now you bloom, you blossom in truth, you radiate peace, you walk in confidence, and the fragrance of your healing reaches further than any rumor ever did. This is your season of clarity, of boundaries without guilt, of forgiveness without access, of purpose without apology. Let them wonder how you're still standing. Let them watch you rise in places they swore you'd never reach. And let your stillness, your stability, and your joy do what their lies never could: set the record straight. Because the most powerful clapback isn't a quote on social media. It's not an emotional outburst. It's not getting even. It's peace. Unshakable, unapologetic, undeniable peace. You earned it. Now live in it.